Marcus Chun had always been terrible at first impressions. Back on Earth, his awkward compliments had ruined 3 job interviews and countless dates. Now, floating in the cramped escape pod somewhere in the Kepler 442 system, he wondered if his social anxiety might actually get him killed. The emergency beacon had been broadcasting for 6 hours when his ship appeared. Marcus pressed his face against the tiny porthole, watching the sleek black vessel approach. It moved like liquid shadow against the stars, its hull seeming to absorb light rather than reflect it. No human ship he'd ever seen moved with such predatory grace. The docking clamp engaged with a metallic thunk that vibrated through the pod's hull. Marcus's heart hammered as he checked his oxygen meter again. 2 hours left, maybe less. Whatever was on that ship, he had to take his chances. The airlock hissed open, and Marcus felt his mouth go dry. The creature that stepped through wasn't like anything in the xenobiology databases. It stood nearly 8 feet tall, with pale skin that seemed to glow faintly in the dim emergency lighting. Its features were sharp and angular, almost ethereal, with eyes that reflected light like mirrors. When it smiled, Marcus caught a glimpse of elongated canine teeth. But what struck him most was how the creature moved. Every gesture was fluid and purposeful, like a dancer or a predator. It wore what appeared to be a form-fitting dark uniform that seemed to shift and ripple as it walked. "Human," the creature said, its voice carrying an odd harmonic quality that made Marcus's spine tingle. "You are far from your territory." Marcus swallowed hard, his mouth suddenly desert dry. The creature's presence filled the tiny pod, and he found himself backing against the far wall. Everything about this being screamed danger. The way it held itself, the predatory stillness, the way its mirror-bright eyes seemed to track his every movement. His brain, already oxygen-deprived and running on panic, chose that moment to completely malfunction. "You look amazing," Marcus blurted out, the words tumbling from his mouth before he could stop them. The creature froze. Its head tilted slightly, and those unsettling eyes widened. For a moment, the only sound was the gentle hum of life support systems. Marcus felt his face burn with embarrassment. Of all the things he could have said, of all the ways he could have introduced himself to what was obviously a dangerous alien predator, his brain had chosen to lead with what sounded like a pickup line. "I mean," he stammered, trying to salvage the situation, "not that I'm hitting on you or anything. You move really gracefully, and your skin has this interesting luminescent quality," and he realized he was making it worse, and clamped his mouth shut. The creature continued to stare at him, with an expression Marcus couldn't begin to interpret. Its head remained tilted at that odd angle, and its mouth had fallen slightly open, revealing more of those sharp teeth. "You find my appearance pleasing?" the creature finally asked, its harmonic voice carrying a note Marcus might have called uncertainty if he didn't know better. "Well," Marcus said, his panic making him honest. "I mean, you're terrifying in a way that suggests you could probably kill me 17 different ways without breaking a sweat, but you're also kind of beautiful, in a dangerous, otherworldly sort of way." The creature took a step back, and Marcus caught something that looked almost like surprise flickering across its features. It raised one long-fingered hand to its throat in what seemed like an unconscious gesture. "I am Velith of the Sanguine Fleet," the creature said slowly. "My kind are known throughout this sector as harbingers of death. We are feared by 100 species. Our very presence causes lesser beings to flee or beg for mercy." "Oh," Marcus said, his stomach dropping. "So you're probably going to kill me then?" Velith's expression shifted again, and Marcus thought he caught something that might have been confusion. "That was the intention, yes. Your escape pod trespassed in claimed territory. The penalty is death." "Right." Marcus nodded, surprising himself by how calm he sounded. "Makes sense. Can I ask you something before you do the whole death thing?" Velith's head tilted the other way. "You wish to make a final request?" "Not exactly," Marcus said. "I'm just curious. What did you mean when you asked if I found your appearance pleasing?" "You seem surprised that I said yes." For the first time since entering the pod, Velith seemed genuinely taken aback. Those mirror-bright eyes darted away from Marcus's face, and the creature's confident posture wavered slightly. "My kind," Velith began, then stopped. "We are not accustomed to such observations." Marcus felt a spark of something that might have been hope. Or maybe it was just oxygen deprivation making him lightheaded. Either way, he pressed on. "You mean nobody's ever told you that you're beautiful before?" The effect of his words was immediate and dramatic. Velith went completely still, and the faint luminescence of its skin seemed to pulse brighter for just a moment before dimming again. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the soft hum of the pod's failing life support. Marcus watched as Velith seemed to struggle with something internal, those mirror-bright eyes darting around the small space, as if looking for an escape route. "Beautiful," Velith repeated the word slowly, as if testing how it felt. "No, no one has ever." The creature's voice trailed off, and it seemed to shake itself back to the present. "This is irrelevant. You are still trespassing." But Marcus noticed something important. Velith's hand had moved away from what Marcus now realized was some kind of weapon at its belt. The predatory stillness had been replaced by something that looked almost like vulnerability. "Look," Marcus said, emboldened by his observation. "I don't know much about galactic politics or territorial boundaries. My ship had a reactor failure, and I've been drifting for 3 days. I'm not a spy or an invader. I'm just a really lost maintenance engineer who apparently has terrible timing." Velith studied him with those unsettling eyes. "Maintenance engineer? Yeah, I fix things. Mostly climate control systems on cargo haulers. Not exactly glamorous work, but it pays the bills." Marcus gestured around the cramped pod. "Though I guess my bill-paying days might be over if this is claimed territory." "You repair mechanical systems," Velith said, and Marcus caught something that sounded almost like interest in the creature's harmonic voice. "Among other things, yeah." "Why?" Velith was quiet for a long moment, seeming to weigh some internal decision. Finally, the creature spoke again. "My vessel has suffered damage to its primary systems. The ship's automated repair functions are insufficient." Marcus felt his eyebrows rise. "You need a mechanic?" "The situation is complicated." Velith moved closer, and Marcus caught a faint scent like ozone and starlight. "My people do not typically seek assistance from other species. We take what we need through conquest." "Right, the whole harbinger of death thing you mentioned," Marcus said. "So what makes this different?" Velith's expression darkened. "I'm no longer welcome among my own kind. This ship is all that remains of my fleet." The admission hung in the air between them, and Marcus realized he was seeing something that probably very few beings had witnessed, a moment of genuine openness from a creature that was clearly used to being feared. "What happened?" Marcus asked gently. "I showed mercy to a civilian transport," Velith said, the words coming out like a confession. "The High Command considers this weakness. They declare me outcast." Marcus processed this information. "So you're basically a space refugee too." "I suppose that is accurate, though I have never considered myself in such terms." Velith's gaze fixed on him again. "My kind are not accustomed to exile. We are either predators or prey. There is no middle ground." "Maybe that's the problem," Marcus said. "Back on Earth, we have a saying, it takes a village. It means that sometimes the best solutions come from working together, not from being the biggest predator in the food chain." Velith's head tilted in that curious way again. "Your species values cooperation?" "Well, we're not perfect at it," Marcus admitted. "We still have wars and conflicts, but yeah, we've learned that building things together usually works better than trying to tear each other down. It's how we made it to the stars in the first place." "Fascinating." Velith moved to the pod's small window, gazing out at the dark ship beyond. "My vessel's navigation systems have been damaged for several cycles. I've been drifting, much like yourself." Marcus felt a plan beginning to form in his mind. "What if I could fix your ship? In exchange for, not killing me. You would trust me enough to board my vessel." "Do I have much choice?" Marcus asked with a wry smile. "Besides, you haven't killed me yet, even though you apparently had orders to. And you saved me from dying in this pod. That's got to count for something." Velith turned back to him, and Marcus thought he caught the ghost of a smile on those sharp features. You are either very brave or very foolish, Marcus-chun. Marcus blinked in surprise. How do you know my name? Your escape pod's emergency beacon broadcasts basic identification data, Velith explained. Though I confess, I find your calm acceptance of this situation unusual. Most beings cower or attempt to fight when they encounter my kind. Maybe I'm just too tired to be properly terrified, Marcus said. Or maybe I figure that if you're going to kill me, you would have done it already instead of having a conversation about my opinion of your appearance. This time there was definitely a smile, brief but unmistakable. Your reasoning is sound. So, do we have a deal? Marcus asked. I fix your ship, and you don't space me? Velith considered this for a moment. There is something you should understand before you agree to board my vessel. My kind, we do not interact with other species the way you might expect. We have certain requirements. Marcus felt a chill of apprehension. What kind of requirements? We sustain ourselves differently than most beings, Velith said carefully. We require life essence to survive. What you might call energy vampirism. Oh, Marcus said, his mouth suddenly dry again. So when you said vampire earlier, I wasn't entirely wrong. You did not say vampire, Velith pointed out. Though the comparison has merit, Marcus thought about this for a moment. His oxygen was running lower by the minute, and his options were fairly limited. Does this life essence thing hurt the person you're taking it from? It can, Velith admitted, though it need not be fatal if taken in small amounts over time. And you're telling me this because if you were to repair my ship, you will be aboard for several days at minimum. I will require sustenance during that time. Marcus weighed his options. Certain death by asphyxiation in the pod, or possible death by energy vampire aboard an alien ship where he might actually be able to help both of them survive. All right, he said finally. I accept your terms. Velith's eyes widened again. Just like that, Marcus confirmed. Though I reserve the right to complain if the energy-draining thing hurts more than you're letting on. For the first time, Velith actually laughed. A sound like silver bells with an undertone of distant thunder. You are unlike any being I have encountered, Marcus-chun. Perhaps this arrangement will prove beneficial for both of us. Velith's ship was nothing like Marcus had expected. Instead of the sterile corridors and harsh lighting he associated with military vessels, the interior was elegant and flowing. The walls seemed to pulse with that same faint luminescence as Velith's skin, and the corridors curved gracefully rather than meeting at sharp angles. It's beautiful, Marcus said as Velith led him through the ship. I was expecting something more. I don't know, intimidating. My people value aesthetics as much as function, Velith replied, though Marcus noticed the creature seemed pleased by his reaction. Beauty and deadliness are not mutually exclusive concepts in our culture. They passed what looked like living quarters, and Marcus caught glimpses of furniture that seemed to be grown rather than built, all flowing organic lines and smooth surfaces. Everything had that same subtle glow, as if the ship itself were alive. The damage systems are located in the engineering section, Velith explained as they walked. The cascade failure began there and spread throughout the ship. My automated systems can maintain life support and basic propulsion, but navigation, communications, and defensive systems are all offline. Marcus nodded, already shifting into professional mode. Cascade failures usually start with a single component. If we can find the root cause and fix that first, the rest should be easier to repair. They descended what Marcus assumed was a maintenance shaft, though even this utilitarian space was more elegant than anything he'd seen on human ships. Velith moved with that same fluid grace, and Marcus found himself watching the play of light across the creature's skin. Can I ask you something? Marcus said as they reached the engineering level. Of course. Earlier, when I said you looked amazing, you seemed really surprised. Is physical appearance not something your people usually comment on? Velith paused at what looked like a door, though Marcus couldn't see any obvious mechanism to open it. The creature's hand passed over a smooth panel, and the barrier simply melted away. Physical appearance among my kind is complicated, Velith said finally. We are all considered beautiful by the standards of other species, but among ourselves, such things are rarely discussed. We are judged by our effectiveness as predators, our strategic value, our ability to inspire fear. Marcus followed Velith into the engineering section, which was a maze of crystalline structures and flowing conduits. Everything pulsed with soft light, except for several areas that were dark and clearly damaged. So nobody ever told you that you were beautiful growing up? Marcus asked, pulling out his diagnostic scanner and beginning to take readings. Growing up, Velith repeated the phrase slowly. We do not have childhoods as you might understand them. Young ones are trained from the moment they can walk to be efficient killers. Aesthetic appreciation is considered a distraction from more important pursuits. Marcus looked up from his scanner, studying Velith's profile in the soft light of the engineering bay. That sounds pretty lonely. Lonely is not a concept we are encouraged to understand, Velith said, but there was something in the creature's tone that suggested otherwise. Marcus turned his attention to the damaged systems, but part of his mind kept working on what Velith had told him. A species of beautiful, elegant predators who were taught to suppress any appreciation for beauty, even their own. No wonder Velith had reacted so strongly to his compliment. Found it, Marcus announced after several minutes of scanning. Your primary power coupling has a microfracture that's causing energy feedback throughout the system. The good news is it's fixable. The bad news is I'll need to shut down primary power to do the repairs safely. How long will the ship be without power? Maybe an hour, if everything goes smoothly. Marcus looked around the engineering bay. Do you have backup life support? Yes, but there's something else you should know, Velith said, moving closer. Without primary power, my ship's environmental systems will revert to settings optimal for my species. The temperature will drop significantly, and the light spectrum will shift. How significantly? Perhaps 20 degrees below what would be comfortable for a human, and the lighting will become minimal. Marcus considered this. So I'll be cold and working in the dark. I've had worse jobs. Velith's expression showed what might have been concern. There is also the matter of my energy requirements. The stress of power loss and repairs will accelerate my need for sustenance. Meaning you'll need to do the energy vampire thing while I'm working? Yes. Marcus thought about this for a moment. Will I still be able to work while you're doing whatever it is you do? The process need not render you unconscious, though you may experience some weakness. All right, Marcus said, beginning to set up his tools. Fair warning, though, I get chatty when I'm nervous. You might end up hearing my entire life story while you're energy vampiring me. Velith actually smiled at that. I find myself curious about your life story, Marcus-chun. Marcus began the delicate process of accessing the damaged coupling. Really? It's not that interesting. I grew up on a farming colony, went to technical school, and spent the last 5 years fixing broken things on cargo ships. Pretty mundane compared to being a space vampire. Space vampire, Velith repeated, sounding amused. I suppose that is accurate, though we prefer to call ourselves energy symbionts. More diplomatic, Marcus agreed, carefully removing panels to access the damaged component. Okay, I'm going to need to shut down primary power now. You might want to start whatever process you need to do for the energy thing. Very well. Velith moved behind him, and Marcus felt a strange, tingling sensation as those long fingers touched the back of his neck. This may feel unusual. Marcus triggered the power shutdown, and immediately the engineering bay was plunged into near darkness. The temperature began dropping almost immediately, and he felt the first stirrings of what Velith was doing to him. It was strange, not painful, but definitely noticeable, like a gentle pulling sensation deep in his chest, as if something vital was slowly flowing out of him. At the same time, he could feel warmth where Velith's hand touched his neck, and the creature's luminescent skin provided just enough light for him to continue working. How does it feel for you? Marcus asked as he carefully aligned the micro-welder with the fracture. What do you mean? The energy absorption. Does it feel good? Bad? Like eating a really good meal? Velith was quiet for a moment. I have never been asked that question before. Really? Nobody's ever been curious about the experience from your perspective. Most beings are too terrified to engage in conversation during the process, Velith admitted. Those few who survive are generally too traumatized to ask questions afterward. Marcus made a precise weld along the fracture line. Well, I figure if we're going to be doing this for the next few days, I might as well understand what's happening. It is. Velith seemed to struggle for words. Nourishing, yes, but also something more. There is a connection formed, however, briefly. I can sense your emotions, your thoughts to some degree. It is intimate in a way that my kind rarely experience. Marcus said, making another precise repair. So right now you can tell that I'm nervous about whether this repair will work, but also kind of fascinated by this whole situation. Among other things, yes. Velith's voice carried a note of surprise. You are remarkably calm for someone in your position. Marcus finished the primary repair and began the process of recalibrating the power coupling. I've always been pretty adaptable. My mom used to say I could find the bright side of a black hole. And what would be the bright side of a black hole? Great for waste disposal, Marcus suggested, grinning in the dim light. Come on, help me restart the primary systems. Let's see if this actually worked. The ship hummed back to life with a sound like distant music. Lights cascaded through the crystalline structures, and Marcus felt the temperature begin to rise as environmental systems came back online. More importantly, the cascade of system failures that had been showing on his scanner began resolving one by one. It worked, Velith said, and Marcus caught genuine surprise in the creature's voice. You sound shocked, Marcus said, checking his readings. Navigation coming back online, communications responding, defensive systems initializing. All green across the board. I've been drifting for 27 cycles with these failures, Velith said. My own engineers declared the damage irreparable before I was exiled. Marcus looked up from his scanner. 27 cycles? How long is a cycle in your time measurement? Approximately 14 of your Earth days. Marcus did quick math in his head. You've been alone out here for over a year. Time loses meaning when one is in exile, Velith said quietly. The weight of that statement settled between them. Marcus found himself studying Velith's profile in the restored lighting. Now that the immediate crisis was over, he could see signs he'd missed before. The perfect posture that seemed just slightly too rigid, the way those mirror-bright eyes didn't quite focus on anything, the subtle tension in the creature's jaw. That's a long time to be alone, Marcus said gently. My kind are not supposed to feel loneliness, Velith replied, but the words sounded like a recitation rather than a belief. But you do feel it. It wasn't a question, and Velith didn't try to deny it. Instead, the creature moved to one of the crystalline displays and began calling up system reports. The repairs have restored full functionality, Velith said, clearly trying to change the subject. I can set course for any destination you choose. Consider it payment for your services. Marcus saved his scan data and began packing up his tools. Where were you planning to go before your ship broke down? Nowhere in particular. Exile means having no destination. That's not really an answer, Marcus said. There must be somewhere you want to go, something you want to do. Velith was quiet for a long time, hands moving over the control surfaces with practiced ease. I have often wondered what it would be like to see the crystal gardens of Andromeda Prime. They are said to be beautiful beyond description. So why don't we go there? Marcus realized what he'd said and felt his cheeks warm. I mean, you could go there. With your ship fixed, you can go anywhere you want. And what of you? Where will I transport you? That was a good question. Marcus's cargo hauler was probably scrapped by now, and he didn't have enough credits for passage back to human space. His job was gone, his ship was gone, and he didn't have much waiting for him back on Earth anyway. Honestly, I don't know, he admitted. I suppose any human colony with a starport would be fine. I can find work anywhere people need things fixed. Velith turned to face him fully. You could come with me. The words hung in the air between them, and Marcus felt his heart skip a beat. Come with you, to Andromeda Prime, or anywhere else. Velith seemed to struggle with the words. I have become accustomed to your presence. And you said your species values cooperation. Marcus set down his toolkit and really looked at Velith. The creature's luminescent skin was pulsing slightly brighter than usual, and those mirror-bright eyes were fixed on his face with an intensity that was both captivating and slightly overwhelming. "You want me to stay?" Marcus asked. "I want many things I'm not supposed to want," Velith said quietly. "But yes, I would like you to stay." Marcus felt something warm unfurl in his chest. Over the past few hours, he'd watched this elegant, deadly creature reveal glimpses of vulnerability and loneliness that no one else had probably ever seen. There was something about Velith that drew him in, not just the obvious beauty, but the complexity underneath. "I should probably warn you," Marcus said. "I'm not exactly the adventurous type. I've never seen crystal gardens or alien sunsets or any of the romantic stuff you read about in travel guides." "Nor have I," Velith said. "Perhaps we could experience them together for the first time." Marcus found himself smiling. "When you put it like that, how can I say no?" Velith's whole demeanor seemed to lighten, and Marcus realized this might be the first time in over a year that the creature had genuinely smiled. "There is something I should tell you," Velith said. "The energy exchange we shared during the repairs, it created a deeper connection than usual. I can still sense your emotions to some degree. Is that good or bad? I do not know. It has never happened before. But I can feel your sincerity, your genuine care. It is overwhelming for someone of my kind." Marcus thought about this. "So you know I'm not just agreeing to this because I'm attracted to you? You are attracted to me?" Velith asked, and there was that note of surprise again. "Well, yeah," Marcus said, feeling his cheeks warm again. "I mean, I wasn't lying when I said you looked amazing. You're probably the most beautiful being I've ever met. But that's not why I want to stay." "Then why?" Marcus considered his answer carefully. "Because in the few hours I've known you, you've shown me more genuine emotion and vulnerability than most humans do in months of acquaintance. Because you saved my life when you could have just let me die. Because you trusted me enough to share your story and let me help you. And because I think you deserve to have someone tell you you're beautiful on a regular basis." Velith went very still, and Marcus caught a shimmer that looked suspiciously like tears in those mirror-bright eyes. "My kind do not cry," Velith said softly. "Maybe they should," Marcus replied. "Crying isn't weakness. It's just proof that you feel things deeply. You truly wish to remain with me, even knowing what I am, what I require to survive." Marcus stepped closer, close enough to see the fine details of Velith's luminescent skin, the way it seemed to pulse in rhythm with the creature's heartbeat. "Especially knowing what you are," Marcus said. "You're not just a beautiful, deadly space vampire. You're someone who showed mercy when your culture demanded cruelty. Someone who chose exile over compromising your principles. Someone who's been alone for over a year, but still chose to save a stranger instead of just taking what you needed. And you find these qualities admirable." "I find them incredibly attractive," Marcus said honestly. "The beauty was what caught my attention, but everything else is what makes me want to stay." Velith reached out slowly, as if afraid Marcus might pull away, and touched his cheek with one long-fingered hand. The skin was warm and incredibly soft. "I have never had someone look at me the way you are looking at me right now," Velith said. "How am I looking at you? Like I am precious. Like I am worth protecting." Marcus covered Velith's hand with his own. "You are. Both of those things, and more." "Then, let us go see those crystal gardens together," Velith said. And for the first time since Marcus had met the creature, that brilliant smile was without any shadow of sadness. 3 months later, Marcus stood on the observation deck of Velith's ship, watching the crystal gardens of Andromeda Prime rotating slowly in the view screen. The formation stretched for thousands of kilometers, natural crystal spires that caught and refracted the light of 3 different suns into cascades of rainbow brilliance. "They're even more beautiful than the descriptions," he said, sensing Velith's presence behind him before the creature moved to stand beside him. "The recordings did not capture the way the light dances," Velith agreed, and Marcus smiled at the wonder in his companion's voice. Over the past 3 months, he'd watched Velith gradually shed the rigid control that exile and military conditioning had imposed. The creature laughed more now, asked questions about everything they encountered, and had developed an almost childlike fascination with new experiences. The station administrator confirmed our docking clearance for tomorrow, Velith said. We'll have 3 days to explore before the tour groups arrive. Marcus nodded, still watching the crystal formations. Good. I want to see them without crowds of tourists. Is that what we are now? Velith asked with gentle amusement. Tourists? Adventurers, Marcus corrected. Definitely adventurers. They'd been to 17 different worlds in the past 3 months, and each one had been a revelation. Marcus had seen bioluminescent forests that sang in harmony with the wind, cities that floated in the clouds of gas giants, and markets where beings from 100 different species traded in currencies he couldn't even pronounce. But the best part had been watching Velith experience it all. Every new sight, sound, and sensation seemed to awaken something in the creature that had been dormant for too long. The rigid military predator was still there, but it was balanced now by curiosity, wonder, and something that Marcus had learned to recognize as joy. There's something I've been meaning to ask you, Marcus said, turning to face Velith fully. Ask away. That day we met, when I complimented you, you said your kind don't usually receive such observations. But you also said you were all considered beautiful by other species standards. How does that work? Velith's expression grew thoughtful. My people are known throughout this sector, but we are feared rather than admired. Most species flee at the sight of our ships. Those who encounter us personally rarely survive to share their impressions. So you'd never actually heard an outside perspective on your appearance? Never. Velith moved closer to the viewport, luminescent skin reflecting the crystal garden's rainbow light. Your words that day were the first time anyone had ever described me as beautiful. It was transformative. Marcus studied Velith's profile, still amazed by the creature's elegant beauty. You know what I think? What? I think your people made a mistake when they exiled you. Not just because you showed mercy, but because you're exactly what they need. Velith turned to look at him. How so? You're proof that being deadly and being compassionate aren't mutually exclusive. That beauty and strength can coexist. Your culture seems to think that appreciating beauty makes you weak, but you're one of the strongest people I've ever met. People, Velith repeated softly. You always refer to me as a person, never as a creature or alien. Because that's what you are, a person. Just because you happen to be a luminescent space vampire person doesn't change that. Velith laughed, that sound like silver bells and distant thunder that Marcus had grown to love. Space vampire. You never tire of that designation. It has a nice ring to it, Marcus said with a grin. His expression grew more serious. Velith, can I ask you something else? Always. Do you ever regret it? Choosing exile over conformity. Velith was quiet for a long moment, gaze fixed on the crystal gardens. Before I met you, I thought perhaps I had made an error. The loneliness was difficult to bear. But now I understand that exile was not a punishment. It was freedom. Velith turned to face him fully. Freedom to choose compassion over cruelty. Freedom to appreciate beauty without shame. Freedom to connect with someone who sees me as more than just a predator. Marcus felt that familiar warmth in his chest that he'd learned to associate with Velith's presence. Speaking of connection, how's the energy sharing working out for you these days? Better than I ever imagined possible, Velith said. The regular, gentle exchanges we've developed are far more satisfying than the violent feeding my kind typically employs. And the emotional connection has gotten stronger, Marcus finished. I know. I can feel it too. It was true. The energy exchanges had evolved from simple sustenance into something deeper. Marcus could sense Velith's emotions as clearly as his own, and he knew the feeling was mutual. Instead of feeling invasive, it had become comforting, like having a constant companion in his thoughts. Marcus, Velith said, and there was something in the creature's tone that made him pay attention. Yeah, I've been thinking about what you said regarding my people, about being proof that deadly and compassionate can coexist. What about it? Perhaps it is time to test that theory. Marcus felt a chill of apprehension. What do you mean? There's a Sanguine Fleet patrol station 3 systems from here, Velith explained. Small, lightly defended, but symbolic. If I were to approach them with evidence of a new way of existing, a path that doesn't require conquest and violence, they'd probably try to kill you on sight, Marcus said bluntly. Probably, Velith agreed. But if they listened, if even one of them understood that there is another way. Marcus understood where this was going, and his stomach clenched with worry. You want to go back. Try to change their minds. I want to try to give them what you gave me, Velith said. Hope. The possibility of something better. Marcus looked out at the crystal gardens, their beauty suddenly seeming fragile and precious. It's dangerous. More than dangerous. Yes. They might not listen. They might not. You could die. I could. Velith moved closer, taking Marcus's hands in both of his own. But if I don't try, others like me will continue to live in isolation and fear. They'll never know there's another way. Marcus studied Velith's face, seeing determination and hope warring with anxiety. You're not planning to go alone, are you? I would never ask you to. Good. Marcus interrupted, because I wasn't planning to let you. Velith's eyes widened. You would come with me? Into danger. We're partners now, Marcus said simply. Besides, someone needs to be there to tell them how amazing you look when you're being all noble and self-sacrificing. Velith's smile was brilliant enough to rival the crystal gardens. You understand the risk? I understand that you're worth the risk, Marcus replied. Besides, what's the worst that could happen? We could both die horribly. Well, when you put it like that, Marcus grinned. At least we go out doing something meaningful. And I get to spend my last moments with the most beautiful being in the galaxy. Velith pulled him closer, and Marcus felt that familiar tingle of shared emotion and energy. I love you, Marcus-chun. It was the first time either of them had said the words, but Marcus realized he'd been feeling them for weeks. I love you too, Velith of the Sanguine Fleet. Former Sanguine Fleet, Velith corrected. Maybe, Marcus said, looking out at the crystal gardens one last time before they'd have to turn toward an uncertain future. But maybe not. Maybe you're about to become something entirely new. A bridge between what your people were and what they could be. And if they refuse to listen, Marcus squeezed Velith's hands. Then we'll find another way. Together. That's what humans do best. We adapt, we persist, and we never give up on the people we care about. Velith's luminescent skin pulsed brighter, and Marcus felt a wave of love and determination flow between them through their connection. Together, then, Velith said. Together, Marcus agreed. And as they stood watching the crystal gardens spin in the light of 3 suns, he couldn't think of anywhere else in the universe he'd rather be.